Welcome back to the Global Frequency.
Boom.
I am your host,
Kozor.
Neffarious. With me, as always, is Adam Lawson from Gifted Rebels, and this
Boom.
is Rebel Frequency. Today, we're
I
going to be
love
talking about a
that.
couple of books. We're going to start with a couple of things that we picked up at the shop, but
Yep.
we are going to talk about Inglorious Rex. We're going to give you our thoughts on the Lost Pages, and Adam's going to tell you all about Kozor that I don't have yet, but I will add my thoughts at a later time. But first, why don't we talk about some of the cool stuff that you've picked up recently? Adam, take it away.
Yeah, so I was in London filming for WhatsApp, and so I picked up a couple things. One is this is awesome because this is the 1970s edition of The Hobbit. It's the third printing of it. Right, all the if you can imagine all the art, this is all done by Tolkien. As I reread it on the flight, and boy, it still holds up. It holds up, from 1937 when it was done till now. And when I read it when I was 13 and now reading it at 43, 30 years later, it's still magical. I still don't have any interest in the Rings of Power TV show because I'm not that excited about fan fiction. So that was one thing. And then this was cool. I picked up there as well for £44 in Forbidden Planet London. The one in New York is epic. The one in London is out of this world, incredible books and deals, and you get this in beautiful Sin City, which is, to me, is Frank Miller's best. So here it is in this oversized edition, right? Because you can see, sort of here's a standard book in comparison to this, and it's just the great Frank Miller doing the absolute best, like he does. It's just come on. I'd give anything just to cut loose, just to feel the fire one more time. So that's my time at the shop. And then I picked up, I didn't realize this, we're talking with Neff about this, but there's a publisher called Bad Idea, and the Russo brothers actually are behind it, even though they don't show their face. They keep very invisible about it. And it's a really unique system. They don't do trades at all. They don't ever do reprints. They just do a wave and then it's gone forever. And they're only in a few shops. I guess there's like about 150 shops that they're in. And they've got this really rad series called Orc Island. It's a weekly, if you can imagine. It'll come out once a week for 4 weeks. It's like this dark, rad fantasy story about these guys going to hunt these orcs down and take their skulls back. The art is just spectacular. It's just beautiful art. The writing is incredible. And the story it's not what you're getting anywhere else. Like that, this Bad Idea is truly delivering the book that you're not getting anywhere else. This other one, Escape from Wyoming, I mean, this is absolutely an amazing story. So it's about that there is a penal colony for intergalactic bad dudes, and it's in Wyoming, and it's underneath the ground, and there's a prison break at that, and it spills out, and then the police officer there, I guess in that case kind of like the deputy, is runs into the mayhem that comes in with these like intergalactic serial killers, right, as they're getting out of prison. And one thing that's cool about Bad Idea books is they have an A side and a B side, so they always have a little story in the back. In this one, they have a little standalone story here in the back called Powder Day. It really packs a lot of punch. It's like everything you want in like this underground comic vibe, but with like the budget of the Russo brothers. So the art and the story quality and everything is at the highest. I have no idea how they're making money. I just think it's about them making something cool, which you don't get very often. So if your shop is one of those that does Bad Idea, I would get it. Mine required me to pre-order the entire catalog of Wave 2. So it's not cheap, but it's been worth every penny.
Around me, we can't get any Bad Idea comics. Like you said, they're
Yeah.
very selective with the stores that they sell to. And I think that part of the exclusivity is to generate appeal, and scarcity. And like you said, they don't do any reprints. Bad Idea actually has caused quite a bit of stir in the indie scene. Like they were just at New York City Comic Con, and there were like people protesting. Yeah, they were generating this outrage of stop Bad Idea, go to this website and like pledge money, and it turns out to be the Kickstarter for their comic books, which you could only get either from the Kickstarter or as they were being released in stores. Originally, they had the founder of Valiant Comics, the reboot of Valiant Comics involved. And that's why guys like Matt Kindt were doing series. Matt Kindt's got the series that I want to read the most, actually. That's the one called They're All Terrible. The art looks fantastic on that. If I can manage to get my hands on some, because I know some retailers who are doing like sales of the entire run. Like once it's all out, they'll bundle it up and send it to you. Like I might be able to get it on the back end, so to speak, but I can't get the weekly releases.
But see, this is what's so cool about this is they've created an actual buzz and a story and this thing that you're like, oh, I got to get that book. There's a sense of a chase. It's exciting. It's like when you saw the band, it's like when you saw Nirvana, when they were just a little band in a small club and you're like, wait, I'm onto something here. They've created that feeling in comics again, which is really hard to get. And I mean, clearly because I think they're well financed, they've been able to make these plays that would be hard for others, but boy, it's worth it. And the stories are so good.
And the art, like having art and colors by Ramon Villalobos on They're All Terrible is just, they got The Ends is out right now. That's like you said, Escape from Wyoming. The Finder looks really great. And all of these were premiered on their crowdfunding campaign. So they're really taking advantage of like boutique feeling that comes with crowdfunding. They took a page out of, the Berserker crowdfunding campaign, obviously. Matt Kindt, right? And it seems like they really kind of have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in comics. Indies kind of where the revolution is. That's where the fresh stuff is coming from, not from necessarily industry publishers, also from crowdfunding. So they've managed to hit both of those notes very well, and they're definitely a company to watch.
And speaking of crowdfunding, that's cool. As I got something here in the mail, that's super dope. I opened it because I didn't realize what it was. It's something I backed a while back. Found them on, Pop XP with Niall and Billy over there. This is somebody made a Casey Jones like 20-minute fan film. It's dope. It's cheeseball and it's lower budge, right? But it is a rad Casey Jones fan film. You get the VHS version and the Blu-ray. So if you could get your hands on this guy, I would recommend it. I'm probably going to be giving away the VHS at some point because I don't have one.
I went to the store this week. I picked up The Hollows, which is Sam Keith's got a new book out. I got Briar, which is Chris.
Wait, show me The Hollows again. How have I not seen this?
It's actually it's a nice big old boy too. And it's a very cool book to look at. I didn't get all the way through it. Unfortunately, like it lost me. Briar was an interesting title.
I saw that I saw it at the shop too. I didn't grab it, but now I think maybe I'm regretting that I didn't.
Well, I don't know if you need to regret it. It's an interesting take on like a fairy tale. So there's a princess, very much Sleeping Beauty set up, but instead of the prince coming and kissing her and waking her up, the twist is that he's like, nah, I'll marry her, just let her sleep. I want the crown. And then so she sleeps for like 100 years, and there are all these wars, and like the kingdom expands, and the world goes to shit because she's not around. And then mysteriously someone kisses her and wakes her up, and it's about her waking up into this world, which is, not the fairy tale world that you traditionally get in a regular fairy tale where they live happily ever after. This is like a post-apocalyptic dystopian world that she wakes up in. So it's interesting. Dialogue gets a little bit heavy for me at times. Like there's a lot of overwriting, but I guess in a way it's intended to be that way because like, it feels very Shakespearean. So it's worth a look. It's not a bad story by any means. Then there was Voyages. Voyages is really cool. I like it. It's sci-fi. I love sci-fi. I couldn't get my hands on Orc Island, so I settled for like weird alien chick, and art that kind of is somewhat reminiscent of like a really exciting, colorful. Yeah, I was jealous, Adam. What can I say? I needed something to fill the void.
I saw Voyages as well too. It didn't grab me like from a story standpoint, but I will admit the art was like, ooh, what could this be? But
All in all, I'd say it was a somewhat underwhelming month for me at the stores.
that's a bummer. I felt like it was a win, but it's because I had good old
Well,
bad
I mean,
idea. I
you
had
got
bad
better
ideas.
books.
I know I had bad idea,
It's not
dude.
fair.
I'm an Escape from Wyoming. They're just I'm loving them. So, but let's talk about. I think that what we did last time. I was at the end of the time. I had to get on a conference call with the job I was just shooting in London, and now I'm back from. But I feel like we might not have hit Lost Pages 2 well enough because I feel like it's one of the really exciting books in the indie scene. And to see its growth from Lost Pages 1 to Lost Pages 2, just in storytelling, Phil as a writer, has like there's a real market difference like between 1 and 2 that shows incredible growth from a writing standpoint and from a storytelling standpoint. And I feel like it's absolutely worth reading and that people should be following where Lost Pages is going and what Phil is doing with this world. Because anybody who isn't familiar with the concept, it's based on this character, the hobo, who has this book with stories in it. So it's an anthology like series, which I generally tend to stay away from, except they're all tied together through this hobo and they kind of poke into each other's stories on occasion and are shaping this world that he's building. And so I like that because they're tangentially connected, and so it feels like you're not just like I read 8 pages and then that means nothing about the next 20 pages I'm reading. So anybody who doesn't know it, that's what the tale is about. The silhouette is like he says, he's like a silhouette like character who haunts the streets of Chicago as this avenging angel, if you will, who doesn't even quite remember who he was or his former life, but he's in this new shape, and super cool. And then with what we've got with Crimstone and Jazz is that in that story we have a girl, Jazz, who has this almost like a multiple personality, if you will, or this alter ego that lives inside her head and that comes out. And that's Crimstone, this big, monstrous, purple Hulk-like character. And it comes from like she had dealt with some like abuse as a kid, and like it spawned this other side of her. And so really cool. And she's like a bodybuilder, UFC fighter, kind of your non-traditional lady character. And that's sort of set the stage. But Neff, I know you had a lot of thoughts about this as well too, and I'll let you.
Yeah, I gotta say, Phil's done a really great job creating a superhero pantheon. I feel that the anthology was really interesting the way that he did sort of connect these characters. They're kind of running parallel to each other. I think what he did in Lost Pages 2 by having Crimstone kind of present sets up Lost Pages 3, which is going to be about Crimstones, so that we kind of know where we're going with it. I love the hobo. And in Lost Pages 1, he really like We the People, great character. The Masquerade, great character. Silhouette, Crimstone.
And there was a We the People Ashcan that came out as well with Lost Pages 2, which a really interesting character because he's like a Punisher that's using like the American Constitution as like his creed. It's really cool. In fact, it's almost like if you merge the Punisher and Daredevil into one person, because he has like the sort of swinging through the city effect of Daredevil, but sort of this vengeful idea, like uncompromising. Absolutely. And I feel like the Ashcan was a taste of him. I felt like I wanted a little more depth on the man. You know what I mean? And maybe that's still to come, I think, in Lost Pages 3, but it was nice.
I think that's one of the strengths about it. Like as an Ashcan, it's a little proof of concept teaser, right? And an Ashcan does its job. If you read the Ashcan, you're like, but where's the rest of it? I want more. Because now you're going for like that was kind of, it's not a standalone story really, it's just sort of like a amuse bouche palette teaser. That's what I feel Phil has really achieved here, is we're on the hook with Lost Pages, and he's reeling me in, because Lost Pages 2, like you said, was definitely a step up in the storytelling of Lost Pages 1, because it is sort of like a full length story about the silhouette. And I got to say, shout out to Lee Byron Carver and Steve Dye, who were the editors on this book. I haven't worked with Steve when it comes to story yet, but I have worked with Lee, and I know Lee's talent for storytelling, and I knew Lee's talent for dialogue, and I can really see how Phil's ability to take Lee's feedback and assimilate it really put out a book here that just hit me so well. There are parts of this book like when he does the flashback to El Dorado's origin.
So anybody doesn't know who El Dorado is, so the silhouette in this story is chasing a guy named El Dorado, which is like kind of like this Spanish/Mexican gangster that's there that uncovers this artifact that's going to give him this, godlike powers. And so that's his enemy that Silhouette is facing in this story, who he doesn't actually fully defeat in the end. It's only really setting the stage. El Dorado, cool character. He gets this golden jaw. So that Silhouette's cool because it's all in black and white, but they had this gold coming out for the villain's power. Really cool. Really cool
Sin
choice.
City, right? You're that third accent color, making it very significant. Like that's the thing that you need to pay attention to.
Totally.
I love the way that they go for a palette shift. Like in the beginning with Warwick, the little kid who's on the run from when Crimstone busted all of the gangsters, and the hobo sees him and he's like, Warwick, like let me tell you about a guy whose greed got the better of him. And the story of El Dorado is narrated, or I should say punctuated, by the poem El Dorado. And upon the very bottom of this page, you get the character that becomes El Dorado. He's like a military contractor. And you can see how it goes from color and drifts down from him being in color to him being sort of silhouetted in black and white. And the palette shifts completely. And then we turn the page into the rest of the book is in black and white. There's very intelligent storytelling going on with the way that they're presenting the book. And I think that that's definitely a cut above some of the other stuff that we're seeing floating around in the indie scene. I think they're using all the tricks of the trade. I think you had one minor critique.
There's two pieces of it, right? I felt like this one focused on the silhouette, and one is that I wanted a little bit more of a peek into his past, because I don't know how long this is going to run. It's not like a mainstream book that could run 100 issues. So I felt like I really wanted to get a chunk or a piece of who Silhouette was before this life, to really tease that out, because he's center stage in this book. It's time to reveal a bit more about him. And the second thing was, because Phil's been doing some great writing, but I feel like in some moments it would be nice if the writing would just pare down just a touch. It would just take it over the edge, right? It would actually have a little bit more punch. Instead of something that's 2 sentences, maybe could we get that down to 1? So it's just a little poppier, and then it would let us sit in the action a little bit better. So it's like it's accenting the action versus like I got to fully stop out of the action and then come back in.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the next book that we're going to talk about has that problem quite a bit. We're talking about Inglorious Rex, and I definitely.
Oh wait, what cover did you get?
Oh, I got all of them, but this is the one that I read.
Oh, okay, gotcha. These are the covers I got. So this is the full book, and then this is the supplemental that kind of gives a bit of the origin story. So the girl on the cover here is the girlfriend of our main character. And then this book, Anatomic. And then Anatomic, this is the supplemental book, gives her backstory. To give a brief synopsis of the storyline, it's in the future, and there are essentially UFC/boxers, fighters that fight in a ring, and essentially they grow these. So this is Rex, right? So this is this creature here. So if you can imagine, this is an organic creature that's been sort of grown in test tubes, plus it has electronic and digital attachments to it, and it's kind of hard to tell.
90 feet tall. It's
the problem.
It's a kaiju.
It's a kaiju. Because so it's a problem with the book is that the relative size on that is a logical problem with the story. But if you can see this, let me show you this here. You can see the way it works out is the characters actually. You can see here in the corner, right here. Do you see this? How you can see this is Anatomic.
Right.
There, she's in the back. See how that's odd? Kind of
like how is he precariously perched on the back?
On the back, if the thing fell over, he'd be dead. There's not even a cover or a cage. It's a bit odd, yeah. So the thing about this is, so they get inside of these essentially battle/monster/bot, and they duke it out right in the ring, and winner takes all type of thing. Our main character here, and refresh me on his name again. It's slipping my mind at the moment. But
Alex.
Alex, thank you. Yeah, because his brother Nate dies. So Alex is a traditional like UFC style fighter, which I don't know anyone would watch that when you can watch monsters fight. But his brother Nate died in the ring due to this guy right here. This guy killed him off. Made an illegal move and smashed the little pod on his back, right? And so that's the story. Then Alex gets an opportunity to take on the guy who killed his brother, despite his girlfriend's, protests, and his coach and his dad is also his trainer. And so it builds
another layer to the protesting, right? It's that she won her fight, which puts her in line to fight Gunn, the number one boxer or fighter who killed Alex's brother in the ring. So he's jumping her to take this fight, and she's like, but that's kind of my fight. Obviously, because of the setup, that Alex is going to win. He's going to reclaim the crown, and he's going to be in a position where he's going to have to fight Anatomic. Like, as soon as you see her win her fight on page, 9, you're like, oh, okay, now it's coming.
Yeah. As you can see, here's some of the fighting action. The lines and colors are great. Lines, inks, colors, all rad, right? And you get this, sort of unusual fighting. And then it also leads to the idea in this that it's not just that they fight in the ring, they're also protectors of the city. So it's like they fight in the ring, and then in the end, it alludes, well, that's kind of giving it all away there, but alludes that there's a villain coming at the end, and that obviously he's going to have to fight outside the ring as well as inside. So this is our story. It's about, unfortunately, it's about as down the middle as you could kind of think, right? Is that it's the brother that died in the ring, and the brother's coming back in to avenge his brother. But the hard part that you run into with this is just this weird thing that you don't understand how the robots work. And they mention that,
how do they fight? How do they fight inside? They show a training montage, right? Where Alex is fighting alongside Rex, and Rex is like mirroring his moves because they have like the neural link and everything, and Alex is teaching him how to breathe, which I thought was very cool.
Cool idea.
How
makes
a
a ton of sense.
Fights.
Yep.
But then he's on the back, and he's not fighting. Like, I thought it was going to be like real steel. All of this was very cool. Like, I liked the ideas, but it didn't work because they gave us a lot of information about other stuff and completely lost the information about the things that poke holes in the
mechanics
of disbelief.
You see, in this panel, you get the proper sizing, right? You see, they get the proper sizing. That's the real size. And then you get this cover, right? It's unfortunately kind of frustrating to figure that out. But once again, see, there he is training, punching the bag. He's in this neuron suit because they mentioned that they take some DNA from the fighter and put it in this creature, right? And then here the guys are fighting. Great design, by the way, on these monsters. Really cool design. Shane did a good job. And Shane's also a fighter himself in real life. He does Muay Thai. And so, but then ultimately what you get is you get these odd you get these pages that have like this beautiful page, right? This double page here. You can see the way that's all laid out. The fists fighting. Super cool. But it lacks any sort of mechanical understanding of how these monsters are fighting. Why would they just be stuck on the back so easily to be hurt instead of either inside or in a separate location doing the maneuvering fighting? So it's odd how they work. And you can see here on the cover, it's like, how does that work? So, and while be it that doesn't necessarily destroy everything, when that's the whole point of your story, it really leaves us wanting something. And then I think we end up, unfortunately, with Alex as kind of a one-note character, right? He's a fighter. He's never fought with one of these monsters before, and then he beats the best guy after a couple months of training from his dad. And so that's kind of like all that is. And then he beats the guy, and it's not like he loses to the guy and then does a rematch, or there's any sort of like concern about him winning. And it's not like the guy like comes and sabotages his suit or comes and sabotages him at the gym or anything to help bring some sort of complexity, or then maybe his relationship with Atomic starts to fall apart near the end, and now they have to fight each other. It's going to mean they're going to break up. So it's missing a lot of dimensions that would emotionally bring you into this story. We get a lot of beautiful, cool monsters.
But the execution doesn't quite line up with what the idea was. Apparently, this is like a city, Apex City, and it's like at the end of the world. Okay, I'm going to just take it on faith that somehow they're powering this thing because the world outside is a desolate wasteland, right? But you've got these things where you can just genetically engineer these monsters, and you're inside the city, so why don't they just clone an army of these monsters to protect the city? Like, why do we have to have the one champion fighter be the one guy who protects the city? And in that, on that note, you've got a whole league. Why doesn't everybody just protect the city? So that, like, that little bit of where the monsters come from, where they get the DNA, and how is the city in jeopardy goes over my head because they don't explain that. Instead, they repeat numerous times that Alex's brother, Nate, was killed in the ring fighting the current champion who struck an illegal blow. They must repeat that at least 3 times. You have these opportunities for storytelling as you go to tell me other things. There was a moment too where I thought was an incredibly missed opportunity. I got hyped. I was super psyched when I saw it happen. I was like, oh my God, here it is. And it's the moment when Alex is having a flashback. He's in the ring fighting the current champion. He just got his bell rung. And it's him talking to his brother. And his brother's like, it's not enough to be great. You have to be epic, right? You don't worry about being great. You worry about being epic. And on the page turn, you see the monster getting up. And Alex is still like, discombobulated everything. And you get this tight shot on the monster. And the monster goes, epic. And I'm like, there it is. I was about to explode. I'm like, the monster's gonna take it all onto his own hands. His brother's soul is inside there because it's his DNA. This is what it's gonna be. It's gonna be the rising up. The monster wins the fight. Alex is unconscious. Like, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all.
I know. And it's kind of what you were thinking was this is how it becomes really cool. Yeah, it just unfortunately it just stayed so down the middle. It has and also too, because that progression didn't require him to make any sacrifices or take any risks and somehow that this fight just abandons all the rules instantly. Yeah, which is odd because Shane is, comes from the fighting world, and it's like, there wouldn't just be like, okay, great guys, you're in a fight. And then the guy comes out of the, steps in from the crowd, punches the guy in the back of the head, and then you still win. No, the match is thrown. It doesn't count. So it's really, which I thought, was kind of disappointing because I think Shane's art and is definitely solid, right? And
the setup was cool. The concepts are giant robots cloned with alien DNA and your DNA that you pilot through a neural link in a boxing tournament. All right, dude, I'm on board. You sold me.
That's right.
Now bring it home.
And it just doesn't come there from an emotional standpoint. The Alex and Nate thing is just so. And then the supplemental book about Anatomic kind of comes across a similar way. It's very one note, just sort of lacking any sort of depth, and then also kind of goes into this other, story with Alex as well too. But once again, you get another shot of this thing on the back that just makes no sense. Anyways, but so I think that all in, if there is I backed Inglorious Rex 2 even before I had read this, because they kind of came out at the same time. I'm willing to try Inglorious Rex 2 and see if, maybe that gets sorted out. Sometimes Rocky's starting because there's some cool concepts that are worth figuring out. It'd be interesting to see what happens as the protector of the city, and maybe we get into more of these details and it can come together better. But ultimately, you read it and kind of walked away going, you know what I mean? It is, whereas you would, unlike where you walked away from this, Escape from Wyoming, you're like, this is so cool. I just can't wait for issue 2.
Lost Pages hungry for the next one. I'm like, where's Grimstone? I gotta know, because the storytelling in that is so potent. Like, so much is baked in. Even though we don't get a lot about the Silhouette, we get a lot about El Dorado, and he's just a one-off villain. Right? But we follow his arc, his journey. It has stakes, it has depth. And I felt like Inglorious Rex had the potential for that.
They did,
and I kind of feel irritated that it didn't, satisfy.
That's right. That it could have been really something great. And it just didn't, it's just unfortunately dramatically underwhelmed.
Yeah. So I thought I was going to see Pacific Rim meets Real Steel, and the robot was going to get sentience. and it was going to
Yeah.
be like this groundbreaking thing where it defies all the odds, and then it's like controversial because, well, if the robot has free will, or the clone, the monster, if the monster has free will, well, the things outside the city are monsters you can't control. We're going to have to put Rex down. And that was the
Right.
reason
And
that we
it's
got into
cool.
this in the first. And I was like, oh my god, the potential
Yes.
here for,
I know. I agree with you. And then Rex is going on
it's a
his
good
own,
setup.
and then they're more like partners. You know what I mean? Because he's a guy who really trained to fight outside of the robot, and he was
Right.
never really inside of the alien clone. He was never really meant to be in that. So it's like cool. So then in the issue 2, it's him and Rex side by side.
Point.
I
You
hope
know,
Shane
and that,
hears
like,
this
yeah.
and he goes, you know what? Maybe that's the new plot, but we'll see how that plays out. I think it's worth a shot. I like what this could be, and the colors and the lines are great. I'm willing to try one more. Yeah. Yep. And then I think that takes us to our last book here, Kozor.
I'm so
Boom.
jealous.
Yep.
It's like you're taunting me.
First of all,
Oh,
Clayton and
look at
Corey
that.
are some of the coolest dudes in the scene. So they'll just look at this from an art standpoint. This feels truly special, right? It has the designs, all these incredible eyes, which is kind of a motif throughout the story. I mean, you can just look at the pages, the quality here that's happening is something else. In it's just beautiful, beautiful design. Um, and the characters, the whole thing from an artwork standpoint feels really fresh. And Kozor essentially tells the story of this, and this is where it starts to get a little messy. So with Kozor, there is this imposing idea that this Kozor is coming, right? Whoever this enemy is, and there's these visions, and there is this captain that is essentially going to this swamps to find the inner truth, if you will, and there's this slight mention here of this Kozor that is to come, right? So you can kind of get that there's a foreboding enemy that is going to come and wreck things, and this captain is trying to uncover this and stop it. And they kind of have this like berserk like feeling they want to create with Guts in this guy, where he's very like emotionless and kind of rude to people, and he's got this fairy that's with him, right? That he's kind of like always tossing her to the side, kind of like how Guts had done in Berserk. Very much
Yeah.
has that whole that setup there. But then what you get is you get these moments where he has this character here, it's this beautiful character here, um, that you just don't. She just disappears from the story, and then you don't know where she goes after that panel. And so then he wades into this swamp, and as he's there, um, these monsters come and kill many of the people that are with him. And I think all in all, what you get is they were trying to build something with this sense of madness, right? Let me show you this character design, because this is just, you have to see this one, right? Like, look at this
Oh
design.
yeah. Yeah.
It's just incredible.
That looks
And
like
this is,
something straight out of Kingdom Death.
I know, right? And so this is like Captain's daughter, and she has her own storyline that sort of comes into playing at the end, right? This is gnarly with the running with the bone. Just a lot of really amazing design, but I think what it's missing is a clear, distinct pathway to the story. And I can understand with Berserk, the story sort of moved in a really organic, not on the nose way. Now, Kintaro, we're talking about maybe the best graphic novel ever made. It probably is. So that's hard format to follow, because the nuance quality required to deliver something as complex as that story is a tall task. It's a very tall task. And so I feel like what ended up happening was this captain, you don't see with Guts, you had this sensation that there was something underneath the surface that you were just waiting to come out. And with this captain, you don't feel that. And as a result, his people go with him into this swamp, are getting killed off, and you don't quite understand this imposing threat of this Kozar. You don't fully get how this all connects emotionally. And unlike Puck and Berserk, who's really empathetic, the fairy in this is beautiful, but maybe you don't have that same empathy for it, because there's sort of like this little cute sort of feeling about this other character. And actually you get these, and you get lots of this expose about this world, But it's almost like it was trying to set up too much. And I think that its weakness is that it's too few of pages.
But how many pages?
It's like 48 maybe, or 40 pages. There's so many pieces happening. There's so much lore about this, about the end of the world and doom and gloom and these crazy creations. But we needed another 12, maybe even 20 pages to get into like how this all connects in a way that bonds us emotionally. And I feel like that's, once again, it's kind of its missing piece. And Inglorious as Rex, it shares a similar setup where you have this incredible design, but it's lacking the heart that really bonds you to these characters. You have dialogue that doesn't move, doesn't get us to the heart of things. Like these two characters here, right? She's beautiful, she's cool. They encounter these monsters in the swamps, but we don't necessarily get enough depth into them or a wit to make them really stand out. But once again, the heart is missing. The captain isn't as intriguing as a Guts, where you can feel that beneath the surface there is this sad, actually quite tragic person, right? And because manga has a benefit, right, that there's doing a lot of small panels and pages that just took us into the emotional world of Guts. And I feel like with this, we just didn't get that kind of time with the captain. I got done with it and felt like I got shotgunned with things that didn't resolve or lead me on a clear pathway. But the Barton brothers delivered a setting and a world and a story that I'm very interested to. I want them to prove me wrong on the next one.
But that's going to be it for us tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate you tuning in. Click the thumbs up. Always like it if you subscribe. You can click the bell for notifications to find out when we go live next. And tune into The Frequency. We'll see you next time.
Boom.